Hello, everybody. Come on in. Nice to see you all. Welcome to the Brooklyn Rails weekly Wednesday afternoon poetry reading series. We've got a terrific reading for you today, curated by Eileen Tabios. A Filipino American History Month poetry reading is the title, and Eileen has invited JoAnn Balingit, Michael Caylo-Baradi, and Jose Padua to read, and Eileen will read as well. I will introduce each of the readers and we'll get the reading started in just a minute. I'm first just going to say a couple things about the rail and the series. If you are here for the first time, you might pay attention to things that get posted in the chat. You're also welcome to post things in the chat. There will be information on the various publications and endeavors of each of our readers as they come up to read, so you might keep an eye on that. You can also get some information on the Brooklyn Rail and also on this series, which you could potentially subscribe to the newsletter for just to get word on the upcoming events. This is also part of the Brooklyn Rail's daily new social environment series, which I believe this is episode 917 of these daily Zoom talks and readings, and this is also the 154th Wednesday poetry reading. My name's Anselm Berrigan. I'm the poetry editor for The Rail, and I work on this series with the terrific staff of Carolyn, Eleanor, and Chloe. And what else am I supposed to say? The October issue of the Brooklyn Rail just came out last week because we had to do it late, because it needed to be done late because it's October and things are supposed to be late in October. And it has some terrific pieces in it by Eileen, so you might check that out. It's online and there's a print edition also. Our first reader today is going to be Michael Caylo-Baradi. Michael is an alumnus of the Writers Institute at the Graduate Center. His work has appeared in the Adirondack Review, Hobart, Kenyon Review Online, the Galway Review, Galatea Resurrects, London Grip, New Pages, PopMatters, and elsewhere. His debut pamphlet, Hotel Pacoima, came out in 2021 from Kelsey Books. In another name, he has been an editor's pick for flash features at Litro Magazine. Please welcome Michael to the Rail Reading Series.
Thank you, Anselm. I'd like to make a brief intro before I read. And I wanted to echo the Middle East before I start reading because there's a slight connection to it. I first heard the proper noun Canaan many years ago before adolescence. Canaan, as you know, is the ancient name for the region where Israel and Palestine is now, Gaza, the West Bank, and portions of Syria and Lebanon. I'd like to think that a certain percentage of children in the Philippines since the arrival of the Thomasites in 1901 have heard about Canaan as early as 8 years old, courtesy of parents who send their children to Sunday school, where they learn that Canaan is a promised land in the time of Jesus. My maternal grandparents always reminded us that the new Canaan is the United States, the new promised land flowing with milk and honey. I'm sure they weren't naive about this new promised land, but like teachers in a Bible class, they emphasized the idea of the place as a destination for a better life. Then my family became part of an exodus and crossed a sea by air. And so the poems I'm going to read offers a slight glimpse into the internal landscape of this new Canaan. The first poem I'm going to read is titled Meeting a Palm Reader Before Migrating to the US. After Kate Braverman. You will drift through endless boulevards and breathe new languages. You will make love to most of them and bear children to some. For years, their cries will make you scramble for the taste of milk and honey, and other fables about wealth and abundance. The mathematics of human demands fascinate you. This will be your constitution in America. Your intellect hungers for everything, including solitude. You will always long for the silence of houses by the sea, for the taste of monsoon rain, sweating bougainvilleas and gumamelas. Their petals hold the lilt of giggles along the waves until they're snapped away like sails in a storm, severed from their usual dance with the wind. The order of my reading is that it's sort of like a small arc where I start from the archipelago going into the belly of the promised land. My next poem is titled Hotel Pacoima. It's a title poem of my chapbook, Hotel Pacoima. Hotel Pacoima. They sink into each other's arms again and feel each other's mouths like they belong to other mouths. Soon, a car chase on Netflix wanted them to drive around and cruise the moon into another Friday night on San Fernando Boulevard. There are many ways of moving inward here. There are no rules of penetrating the deserts of a body without family in this country. The bed sheets are used to that. They love the scent of whispers, acclimated in the vagaries of love. The painting on the wall appears to frame a city through the eyes of fatigue and exhaustion. Perhaps they belong to the face looking at the window, looking away from the room, waiting for something to happen, for anything that feels total and immutable. The third poem, you might think it has a kind of a street flavor to it. Young man, Los Angeles, you'll see it. It's titled Painters. We want to paint the city with horizons burning in our minds. It's our second weekend since we split each other's lips to instigate a bleeding we both had to hear. That night, we dived into obscenities and bathed the moon with language bubbling with toxicities. It all started on a trivial thing while thinning gin. A door into a symptom we've maneuvered like the donuts we perform on intersections to impress ourselves on Instagram. We like to frame the fuzziness of love within the ecstasies of game and play. We choreograph and dress ourselves with codes around the joysticks of our steering wheels. And I'd like to continue the theme of sort of pop culture thing, but really deeper into the street thing. And this one is titled Taggers. We own the rocks and walls near Hansen Dam, where we tell stories with our hands, as though descendants from the void, dispersed from sands, where hieroglyphics mythicize the minds of man. We get there like a pack of wolves, beyond the grasses and the trees, spreading silhouettes between the midnights of our steps, until the body replicates a state of ease, averse to light that magnifies the contours of the face. This is the fellowship that breathes into fraternal scripts, astute with codes that mine the heart of roots, of hopes, of reclamations that are never heard, bursting into lines, colors, cruising on the restless rhythms of our hands. The next one I'm going to read is sort of like an homage to a section of LA called Echo Park. I like the idea of lakes and people coming from different places in the world where they live near a lake, and then they end up in LA and live in near lake. And these are called lacustrine dwellers. The title is sort of like an echo of the poem of John Ashbery, Lacustrine something, I forgot the name, but I should have placed his name here after the title. Lacustrine dwellers. Nostalgia brought us here to appease anger and loathing of previous geographies that conquered our hearts. The calm of Echo Park Lake floods through polyvocal memories of castrations and fruitions around Lake Tanganyika, Ta Lake, and Lake Titicaca. Each day, smiles welcome us with reluctance, parts of the feast of an idea of being eternal wanderers, clawed with startling visions of beginnings, as though standing under noctilucent clouds above bodies of water haunted with superstitions. The streets offer silhouettes of remembered lives. Masked dawns must burn and tear apart, so we can start all over again amidst endless freeways that steer the sun into our plans. The next poem is called Altar. It's Hollywood. You see it. Altar. I see some traces of myself on screen, splintered into emotions with different faces. A theater of me, now in the minds of other viewers and eyes in this dark room. How are these eyes attached to those images? Large, saturated in color, commanding attention, non-interactive and self-centered. Behind the faces and emotions up there, I see buildings, massive structures, glossy landmarks, identical to other cities in other movie shows. Spaces desperate for something to be known, for something visual to be included in tourist guides. The camera then takes the emotions for a wild ride on the road to angular streets leading to a labyrinth of bodies, shops, alleys, traffic jams, a spectacle of movement and stasis under a vibrant sun. Then the movie takes me deeper into scenes I do not have to believe are real, which is nothing new, just basic religion. You look for the spectacle that counts inside. The last two poems I'm going to read are sort of, well, they're dedicated to the idea of family. And I guess this is right there in the idea of promised land or how to go there. This one is upward mobility. First, we push the children into their games and giggles to insulate them from obscenities circulating in the kitchen. Then we lose our temper and act like masters of a new language for unexpected predicaments. But we cook the things we fail to complete for the day. This is how we ignore the moon. This is how we end the day. We do not reminisce. We do not light votive candles in our minds, genuflecting before an almighty, asking for help and inspiration. We do not coalesce into restful naps and TV shows. The idea is to fortify resolve now, reconstitute the structure of ambition on the edge of our lips. This is how we survive each other's poverties, how we stew possibilities for the future. We never incriminate ourselves for murdering intransitive options. We just chew and masticate them at the dinner table to feel the marrows of our fears. The last one I'm going to read is sort of like it circles the idea, going back to the idea of homeland. And the title of this piece is the longest piece in the my reading, Under the Spells of Canaan. Now and then, I hummed the Philippines into a pot of hot veggie soup. I like to drown another week with the usual greens, green as mangoes dipped in fermented fish, vinegar, and the heat of March outside my grandparents' house years ago. The house lived for a piano in the living room, the heart of birthdays, Christmas Eves, and fiestas, keyed to giggles we flash from Kodak Instamatic cameras, dying for the pitch of another revolution. Outside, the coconut trees discoed to the macho of the village people, standing tall and invincible against a dictatorship, while my brothers and I rocked and rolled to the amazing graces of Sunday school Bible studies. Back then, God hustled us with stories of miracles, promised lands, and the idea of time. There is a season for everything under heaven. Indeed, we love the season of sweet fried bananas. We'd gobble every day if we're spinning the wind to De La Paz Beach with our bicycles. One day, we blurred the sky with tears and hugs. It was departure time. Soon, we saw the heavens floating through a field of clouds and desolation, bereft of angels and their canticles. You're lucky you're going to Canaan, the land of milk and honey, our grandparents had said about the United States. And we believe them the way we believe that Nellie Olson and her doting mother are the evil twins of Walnut Grove, Minnesota, in the little house in the prairie. Back then, the islands already had a daily diet of American TV shows. Thus, in Los Angeles, we bitched like pioneers as well. We gave a Nellie Olson attitude to anyone who made fun of our accent in school, and we never told our parents that. Only things we can swallow properly at dinner time, like a B+ on a test, or anything we can freeze into a smile, because as the village people might say, there's no need to feel and sad and down in a new town, because there's always a place you can go. Now for us, that place was not the YMCA. It was the wooden table beside the kitchen, where everyone in my family still knew how to close their eyes and feel a steeple in their hands before dipping our tongues in the silence of hot veggie soup into something pure and basic we can never let go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Our next reader will be JoAnn Balingit. JoAnn is a poet and essayist, grew up in Florida, and lives with her family in Newark, Delaware. Daughter of a Filipino immigrant to the US, she'll be traveling in Pampanga Province, Philippines on a Fulbright scholarship in creative writing beginning January of 2024 to work on her hybrid form memoir about migration, identity, family secrets, and reclaiming history. Please welcome JoAnn to the Rail Reading.
Thank you, Anselm. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here. Carolyn is going to share the screen for me. I'm going to read to you the text of a visual poem called Don't Erase Me. And this is the first poem. It's in 3 parts, and then I'm going to read a short poem after that. I've been thinking a lot about connections and communicating and communing with the ancestors. I didn't have the privilege of knowing. I don't know a lot about my father's homeland or his life there, but he came to the United States when he was 26 in 1929. He was born in 1903. So I feel like, having been born just about in the middle of the 20th century, a friend of mine said, you know, I'm holding hands with 2 centuries. I have granddaughters born in the 21st century. And my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, I never knew, obviously was born in the 19th century. Don't Erase Me, a visual triptych poem. Someone wrote Patling, taken, Kapetan, Mu, on the back of this 3x5 photograph. She is last in line with an X drawn on her saya, like they thought my father wouldn't know her, his sister, and maybe not. So long had he been gone. I could read the words, but I couldn't understand them. What is patling? What is capitad? But I knew my father's sister was named Patricia. Is this Patricia years ago, the girl he never saw again? And the language, Kapampangan, my father's first language, well, presumably his first language. In 1899, General Arthur MacArthur deployed American education in English as the US military's weapon of choice against the insurrection. My father, born in 1903, would have begun his schooling in his barrio in Macabebe, Pampanga, about 10 years later in 1909. Kapampangan, my lost mother tongue. Amanung Siswan, they call her, meaning the breastfed language. In my father's mouth, she went dry. Slide. Talking to, talking from, talking with my ancestors in a photograph that belonged to my father, I only ever saw after he died. According to the Atlas of Endangered Alphabets, Kulatan, the Kapampangan script, was for 16th century Spanish colonizers the victim of preference in the Philippines. Indigenous language, always the colonizer's target. If you listen to your loved ones in the voices and the notes of your ancestors, if those sounds tell familiar songs and light your eyes while you sleep, do you know how lucky you are? Slide. Finally, when distant cousin Raymond answered me to say that mu means your, kapitad mu, your brother, sister, I understood. I say the word sibling all the time, so why did I think it odd at first that Raymond wrote brother, sister, brother/sister? Why did I wait so many years to get these few words translated? Someone sent my father this photograph from far away. In San Francisco, he slipped it out of his pocket of the night watchman uniform to look at it one more time from far away. And when he got home to the sleeping house, he put it safe away, and he never took it out to show me. The girl with the X in black ink on her saya, my Dara, Patricia, she looks like my little sister, Andy. And the girl with here on her forehead looks just like me in my school uniform in St. Joseph's in the 3rd grade. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Earth is quaking. Earth is quaking. Kapatad mu. Mama ayun, 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 X, 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 X. Here for good. Don't erase me. What life is rich? What life is cruel? How does the photographer decide? Who told us not to smile? Who decided that girls have to smile? Who is this man? For it must have been a man taking the picture here. Why do I look pensive? How long did I live? Did I stay or did I leave? Did my mother hold my baby? What is my name? What joke made me laugh? Who did I love? When did I die? Why did I die? No, no, I am here. 4. My mother made my dress. My mother made my food. The servant buttoned my dress. The servant brought me sweets. My mother told me, put your dress away after the cameraman left. The girl in the future will not know my name. The sad woman in the future wonders my name. I lost my name. I lost my dress. Good. Earth is quaking. I am standing here 50 years from now. My brother is gone, but I am still here. One of his daughters looks just like me. I have become an ancestor. Why doesn't she know me? Ayun, earthquake. Mama, Ayun, earth is quaking. No, I see. My father was not the cameraman. Slide. Don't Erase Me 3. Meditation on Inherited Grief and Inherited Love, R.I.P. Bell Hooks. At my desk, I lost myself. A grief I may never be able to make clear. I want to hide it, hide from it. Perhaps I have been on a journey I was looking forward to, and then I woke up, ashamed to say I had been asleep. I want to wake myself. I've been hiding from myself inside this grief, my blanket. And then around 11:30 a.m., Bell Hooks died. Bell Hooks died. Bell Hooks died over, and Bell Hooks died on my phone, and Bell Hooks died on my monitor. Stop it. Stop dying. Stop dying before I had a chance to love you more completely. It really is the only part of us that survives. The new grief was love, condensing in the atmosphere of my workspace, my books, my journals, the pens, my envelopes, photographs, this photograph. These girls reek of my love for them. They are standing on the floor of the future of my love for them. I couldn't understand it. Grief for a woman imagined, sorrow for an ancestor I can barely assume to have. I had begun to read Bell Hooks to understand how we inherit our ancestors' love, the genetic mutation love causes, the inherited love across generations. In the wake, how we suffer the love of our ancestors' transgenerational understanding. Quote, I was not ready to love or be loved in the present. I was still mourning, clinging to the broken heart of girlhood, broken connections. When that mourning ceased, I was able to love again. Bell Hooks. And Carolyn, if we could go all the way back to the title slide. And then I realized when this photograph was taken, when this photograph was sent, when my father held this photograph in his hands, when he searched the eyes and face for a memory, I was standing in the corner of the future. Aunt Patricia, I am sorry I did not see you. I was always there, and you were always here, and you are here. I could not see you. But once my grief for my Babayi ancestors becomes part of their future, I can love in the present. And I see you now, Patricia. I am looking out your window. And we can stop the share, Carolyn. Thank you so much. And so I'm going to read one more poem. It's called Water Birth. And I'm really thrilled that my granddaughter, Ray Poole, is here. Hi, Miana Ray. And Miana, I don't have your poem to read today, but I'm going to read a poem for Bibi, your cousin. I've got two granddaughters, and Miana Ray's little cousin is 5 months old almost, and this is called Water Birth. I feel kind of like in that movie Arrival, where the language is circular because time is understood to be unending or not anchored. So I feel kind of like my granddaughters are the ancestors to my ancestors somehow when I'm writing. Water Birth. No usurping her pain now, the baby's head is crowning. No panting, I say. Take deep breaths through your nose. Everybody in the room the doula, the midwife, the nurse, models the deep breaths. Everybody except Matthew, who is crying, his face pale and wet from her hands. I take her hands. How so cold in all this effort. I can't do this, my daughter roars, having done it. The invisible birth waters have already smoked into the bath. Our bodies are always ahead of themselves. Like that, she has pushed her baby out into a tub of city of Newark water. Mom, 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 mom. Call the world what it is. Its magic is plain to see. Mother or grandmother, which weighs more on the scale of the body? The long, slick creature warbles, head to one side, and her family wails back at her their pre-discovered sounds, sounds backed all our lives up inside our bodies. We have each paid a portion of our backups, responding, and will not get them back. The baby so new, she has no backup. And yet, how memory works. Already behind closed eyes, plain to see, she is dreaming the origin dreams. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you, JoAnn. Our next reader is going to be Jose Padua. Jose's first book, A Short History of Monsters, was chosen by Billy Collins as the winner of the 2019 Miller Williams Poetry Prize and is out from the University of Arkansas. His poetry, fiction, and nonfiction have appeared in many publications. He has read his work at Lollapalooza, CBGB's, The Knitting Factory, the Public Theater, the Living Theater, the Nuyorican Poets Cafe, the St. Mark's Poetry Project, the Split This Rock Festival, and many other venues. After spending the last 12 years in Washington, D.C. and Virginia's Shenandoah Valley, he and his family have moved slightly north to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Please welcome Jose to the Rail Reading.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm going to read the first section from my manuscript, which is a collection of sonnets called the Electric Sonnets, and these are loaded with a lot of historical literary references and also pop culture and references to stupid jokes as well, and mostly presented in a rather profane manner, and like some parts, but that's just my personality. Anyway, let me start. The first one is called 1982. Everything in the world that's electric eventually dies. Jimi Hendrix, Frida Kahlo, Isadora Duncan, Federico Garcia Lorca all eventually died, killed by vomit, fever, suicide, accident, assassination, all killed eventually, as in a great heavy metal song, by death. And those lesser known as well, all sooner rather than later, beforehand, not afterwards, and sometimes even now. Is it any wonder that when the power goes down, we call it a blackout? Is the irony lost on us that an early way to cover up one's stupid mistakes was to use whiteout? Prince Rogers Nelson recorded 1999 and 1982. What the hell did you do in 1982? Master class. What the hell did you do in 1982, motherfucker? And don't tell me all about Anna Livia Plurabelle. Was that some porn star you had the hots and VHS tapes for? And when the technology went to DVD, to Blu-ray, to streaming nasty adult channels 24/7, you said, fuck it, I'll write a book. James Joyce had balls, James Baldwin had balls, and Gwendolyn Brooks would have put both of these dudes. She was cool like that. This is my master class. Your check was supposed to be in the mail to me yesterday. I don't take PayPal, and I have trust as well as anger issues. Just ask my mom, but wait, you can't. She's gone because she was electric too. And bless these tasty victuals upon my table, Werner Herzog. Pull these statues down from the mountain like it's 1982. Let's hypnotize the ruling class this time. Heaven knows I'm miserable now. Hang it all, Stephen Patrick Morrissey, you're like a girlfriend in a coma who won't stop talking. There can be but one electric warrior, and you didn't make it because you couldn't make it, and you definitely weren't it. Now your country is full of people who are darker than you, but then pretty much everyone is darker than you because you're one pale ass motherfucker. When you were electric, your lights never went out, and now that the lights are off, you're always home. And I love the chiaroscuro you walked upon, Michelangelo Merisi de Caravaggio. Though I never killed anyone, I did once, when I was young, steal an extra large bottle of Tylenol for my mother. This was before the Chicago Tylenol murders in 1982, and I figured that until I learned how to tear bad shit down, I'd better learn how to steal. You don't know what love is. Let us take a moment, consider the glory of the suburbs, the vast expanses of neatly trimmed lawns, the loving 6 or 8 laned avenues of strip malls anchored the big box stores, and the banks who keep our finances and keep them healthy, and the tasty splendor of 1,000 restaurant chains we love to frequent with alacrity and the enthusiasm with which we sit at multiplex theaters, watching Lego versions of all the classics from Lego Moby Dick to Disney Presents The Wretched of the Earth in 3D with Dolby. What the fuck is this a rocket attack sound? And I am a lover of all the art from which I may not recover. Eric Dolphy playing flute at his last recorded concert. A yellow rose when it's laid just so on black marble in the early evening light. Canto 81. What thou lovest well remains electric like the ocean's breaking waves. What you break turns dialectic like a brick thrown through the window of an oligarch's flagship store. This is the language they understand. This is the beauty that moistens their flesh. This is the alpha and omega of surge protection for those with too much buzz. Just as book creates meaning and meaning creates life, it's the cop who spawns the uprising, the insurrection that makes the change. I am rewriting the Book of the Dead to incorporate changes for old institutions that refuse to die. I was somewhere around the springtime of my life, wandering the city streets at night, my head full of rum and longing, my chest full of smoke and dreams, when I saw in the cat's mouth the brick. That's a stupid joke in case you didn't know that. Lestrygonians, to whom it may concern, although I still express myself through the written word, I'm rebranding my activities, my activities. Henceforth, refer to me as lifestyle model, entrepreneur. Writer is such a boring label. Sitting at my desk, writing, going down the long, treacherous American road, words in my head. Now I sit in my studio creating lifestyles, creating capital where there once was art, selling poetry snow globes that you shake to create a new poem. Because in America, we are a people of leisure, verbal affluence, prosperity diction, luxury grammar with deep pockets. It's all in my annual report. So look back in anger, all ye pop stars, business gurus, and influencers of the corporate daisy chain. I've learned the art of your deal. My windows are already broken. Wild beasts know my name. I am your competition. Rubber bullets and electric. This is an elegy for all those who couldn't be stopped by rubber bullets, who cried through tear gas attacks but kept striding forward, who marched in love all day in sweaty, dirty clothes like drifters in search of a cool breeze. This is for those who were dragged into cellars or thrown into the river, the children put in cages and made orphans, Laughs turned into endless lamentation, curable diseases transformed into death sentences. But this is also for those who took hard drugs for the singular tone of contentment they provided, no matter how long or how short, who tripped their brains out toward infinity like noonday surfers on speed. The summer sun sets as always in the west, over mountains of angst and imbecility, the gray-green sea churning like industrial waste, swelling the canal's banks, yellow sky brightening even the insides of dank caves on Black Fridays. This is for everyone who had to be taken away, everyone who walked that long, hard walk because they were electric. Head. With Antifa hath no xenophobic, homophobic sons of bitches, a comfortable sports bar for drinking domestic brew and eating greasy, fatty snacks. With Antifa seeth no woman named Karen, an unblemished memorial to Stonewall Jackson, teaching her heritage and history and her right to take dominion over all other heritage and history. With Antifa selleth no Thomas Kincaid on QVC, his paintings and memorial shot glasses. With Antifa sniffeth no drug-sniffing dogs on the border of Mexico and Texas, no notched belt sheriff with an itchy trigger finger and a pink poodle named Morris on the Rio Grande River. With Antifa no hawk in sheep's wool dyed blue in elected office, his fingers holding a blunt, his lips giving orders to kill. The drone misses its target between bride and bridegroom on their wedding day. Lee Greenwood sings, "At least I know how much I suck" at the county fair. With Antifa, Mr. Bob Dabalina can't shut the gate to his gated community. With Antifa, a man measuring his dick gets fucked. Melquiades, he sees everything like this. When I was freaked with acid one 4th of July, the world seemed to emerge as if from some Southern Gothic film. I stared at friends and neighbors as they told stories, then shut squeaky windows in response to my silence, which made me laugh. City traffic moved like fast highways, but on looking over to the next lane, I'd smile, thinking, oh, they're tripping too, or, oh, the basilisk is getting too close, and I'd look far, far away. Superstars with big hits and fancy cars ceased to exist because we were all big hits, climbing the pop charts like sweltering heat of glass tubes and climbing up the pop charts like sweltering heat of glass tubes as a changing light changed into something that wasn't light, feeling that nothing in this world would ever crush me again. Later that year, I read for the first time 100 Years of Solitude and started, finally, to leave all my busy old friends behind. Introducing Feliciano Ballisticchi. And so there were ghosts in the house that Papa built 400 years ago, restless witches and tidy men and vice versa. Several lives later, Thatcher made war in the Falklands and Reagan made love to an image of America corrupt as the villain on a nighttime soap opera. I remembered Lightning Hopkins and Lester Bang, who left the planet that year when I'd been alive for a quarter century, like one of several coins you drop in a cigarette machine. I tried to be swank and cool with ostentation, but I always ended up being subtle and shit when I wanted to be blunt and bold and full of pulchritude. And it was 4.5 noisy centuries earlier when Ruy Lopez de Villalobos named the Islas de Poniente for King Philip II of Spain, who had attempted to make the Inquisition more electric. If only I could scratch it from today like a particle from the future in quantum physics, changing a particle from far, far in the past. If only I could gather all my spare parts and shine for the rest of my days. No, thanks.
Thank you, Jose.
Eh.
Our our final reader today is also the curator of this event, Eileen Tabios. Eileen has released over 70 collections of poetry, fiction, and experimental prose from publishers around the world. Recent books include the poetry collection Because I Love You, I'd Become War, an autobiography, The Inventor, and a first novel, Dove Lion, a fairy tale for our times. She invented the Haiku, a 21st century diasporic poetic form, the MDR poetry generator that can create poems totaling theoretical infinity, and the fluid poetry form that's rooted in a good deed. As I mentioned before, Eileen has poems in the current issue of the Brooklyn Rail. Please welcome Eileen to the reading.
Thank you, Anselm, and thanks to Brooklyn Rail for hosting this event. Because October is Filipino-American History Month, I thought I would share about the poet Jose Garcia Villa, without whom any recounting of Philam history would be incomplete. I thought I would read excerpts from my acceptance speech for the Pan-Oakland Josephine Miles Literary National Award for editing The Anchored Angel, Selected Writings by Jose Garcia Villa. He is the Philippines' most accomplished poet in the diaspora, as well as a key modernist American poet. At the time I edited The Anchored Angel, it was to recover him out of literary obscurity. It would take another 8 years before Penguin Classics would bring Villa, presumably to a larger audience, through Dove Lion, collected poems. And I thought I'd share my 23-year-old speech because much of it touches on Philam literary history, and because despite my and Penguin's own actions, I think Jose Garcia Villa remains unknown by many, and he should be better known. So from my speech in Oakland over 2 decades ago, I just moved to San Francisco after living for 21 years in New York City, and it's fabulous to be welcomed to the Bay Area by participating in tonight's proceedings. Thank you so much to Penn Oakland for awarding the Joseph and Miles Literary Award to The Anchored Angel, a book I edited on Jose Garcia Villa. I was moved to read that this award represents a so-called perception of multicultural literature that does not seek validation from the literary establishment. I was moved because if the literary canon of this country during the last 50 years had been as open-hearted as Penn Oakland, there would have been no reason for me to spend 3 years putting together this book, The Anchored Angel. By this I mean, The Anchored Angel seeks to recover the works of a poet whose writings undeservedly have lapsed into obscurity. He was not only a significant influence on what was a developing English language literature in the Philippines in the 20th century, but he was a leading modernist American poet. And I'd like to share his poem, whose title is simply The Number 213. Jose, he often titled his poems by numbering them. I demand brilliance and consecration because of a star. How beautiful is the light like grass. Love is not far, nor your hand. This being so, love me well, because what love is, I saw. I saw love well. Love tied a bell to your heart. Love said, kiss him and let your heart ring. And this is the thing. To publish a book reintroducing Jose Garcia Villa to an American audience is an act that says much about the long reach of history, as well as how history comes to be written. Villa's life and poetry can be viewed within the context of events over 100 years ago, partly instigated by the United States, and yet mostly not mentioned in American history textbooks. In 1907, the poet was born to Don Simeon Villa, a colonel in the Philippine Revolution that overthrew 3 centuries of Spanish colonial rule. It was a successful revolt. On June 12, 1898, the Filipinos announced their independence. But just 5 months later, The United States aborted the Philippines' Declaration of Independence. The United States claimed it owned the Philippines after buying it for $20 million from Spain through the Treaty of Paris. The Filipinos protested and thus commenced the Philippine-American War. Many Americans are not familiar with this war, and yet this is the war that has been called the United States' First Vietnam. About 30,000 American soldiers died, but over 1 million Filipinos were killed. With their prowess on the military terrain, of course, the U.S. won the battle, and thus did the Philippines become an American colony. Consequently, Jose Garcia Villa grew up as a child in the household of a colonel of the failed Philippine Republic, a father who was forever a grim, silent man, someone perceived as cold and heartless by his child. The tensions between Jose and his father symbolized the generational tension between two worlds clashing together, fathers who lived in the dying past, and impatient sons eager to embrace the new American culture. At age 21, the poet ran away from his father in the Philippines to the United States. Here, he wrote poems like the magnificent poem number 4. Oh, the eyes that will see me, and the mouth that will kiss me, and the rose I will stand on, and the hand that will turn me. This will be in a time of mirrors. Oh, the tiger that will point me, and the light that will drown me, and the voice that will sing me, and the God I will dethrone. This is the death I will stand on. So the poet wrote metaphysically. From the dregs of the failed revolution, Villa came to claim that he was born in a country called, quote, Doveglayan, a name he melded from the words dove, eagle, and lion, and something he described as a strange country with no boundaries. Only earth angels can live in this country. Villa would explain, land itself is not a real country. It is commerce, agriculture, politics, a husk country. Doveglayan, however, is a real country because it is a country, quote, that moves to follow fire, unquote. In the US, Villa's poems were praised by literary notables like E.E. Cummings, Conrad Aiken, Marion Moore, Dame Edith Sitwell. Dame Edith Sitwell would say about Villa's poetry that it springs straight from the depths of the poet's being, from his blood, from his spirit, from his experience, as a fire breaks from wood. But Villa was not just a metaphysical poet, he was an innovator. He added his own contributions to poetry through such innovations as the comma poems. In the comma poems, he placed a comma after each word, something that he devised to effect a time movement, where his poems would be read with a slight pause after every word. Not everyone liked it, by the way. But as a Filipino-American, I was heartened to discover Villa's poems given the history of English for Filipinos. That is, that English was introduced to the Philippines specifically as a tool of colonialism and imperialism. So among some Filipinos, English is sometimes referred to as, quote, the borrowed tongue, although it seems to me that enforced tongue would be more accurate. Consequently, when a Filipino English writer excels in his or her poems, like our readers today, when they do something as fine, as brilliant, as innovative as Jose Garcia Villa accomplished in English, I am heartened, because to write well in English in a way may either be a form of revenge or a form of transcendence, that is, transcending the history of how his English has come to be more widely spoken within the Philippines than most any of that country's own languages. I'd like next to share a poem by Villa, which might be considered an Ars Poetica poem. In this poem, I think that when Villa goes up against, quote, God, he is going up against God in the sense of his father, the failed revolution of his father's generation, and for me, going up too against English as God whenever he disrupted normal narrative syntax and diction. Via's poem number 5 begins, "Between God's eyelashes, I look at you, contend with the Lord to love you. In this house without death, I break his skull. I ache to love you. I will batter God's skull, God's skull, God's skull. I will batter it till he love you. And out of him I'll dash to thy coasts, O mortal flesh." That poem made me shiver the first time I read of battering God's skull. Still, I think it would be a disservice to Villa if I presented his poems merely in polemical terms. Ultimately, Jose Garcia Villa believed the poem is song, and this is why I'd like to share his poem number 21. Girl singing, day, and on her way she has to pass by the oldest mountain. That at least is certain, rain that doth leave no stain, and again whose flowers move jealously. Oh, pity me, if her eyes move and destroy all firmament. How brightly devised is that moment, much and muchly praised. O day imperishably dazed, O woman God graced. Succor God alone, oh teach him joy, oh girl singing, oh for whom alone God bows out, oh lovely throat, oh world's end, oh brightly devised, crystal moment. It seems to me that Villa's poetry and poetics also prefigured the battles that contemporary Asian American poets would come to fight in more recent decades. That is, that although we are Asian American artists, That is, that although we are Asian American artists, we should be able to write anything about anything, whether or not that subject relates overtly or narratively to ethnicity and culture. A poem on, say, the beauty of the sunset, if written by an Asian American, should also be considered an Asian American poem. We don't always have to write about family, food, immigration, those topics identified with us by mainstream or academic culture. I'll end my excerpts of the Penn Oakland speech here, and I apologize for yelling quiet to my dogs. I would like to conclude by reading my response to one of Jose Garcia's poems, which I'd read earlier, number 21, which had begun with the phrase girl singing. In response, I wrote my poem, The Secret Life of an Angel, which I note, because it amazes me, that it became a poem that generated an anthology of about 40 poets and artists responding to it. In turn, that anthology became used by avant-garde poet and Professor Rupert Lloydell to teach students at the UK's Falmouth University for several classes, so that my poem, and thus Jose Garcia Villa, was introduced to a new generation of younger poets. What a pleasure that was. This poem is for Jose Garcia Villa. The Secret Life of an Angel. Girl singing, day. The old man of winter reaches for immortality with a lengthening shadow despite my skipping away. Girl singing, I insist, day. I chant like the babaylan I will become to keep the clouds from dimming the sun, from milking the sky of its cobalt gaze. He has worn many disguises and I have let him, the original angel who fell and fell. It's a glorious ride, he has whispered, as part of his spell. This is a game of poker I have lost, but no longer wish to play, I reply. Girl singing, day. I insist and proclaim, you cannot scoff my secret demon, for I played with high stakes while you only watched. Girl singing, day. I risked everything while you hedged, so I could sing notes only virgin boys can muster, only fearful dogs can hear. I lost myself in the valley of evil, but my wings unfurled to make me rise. Unlike your wings, mine did not betray, unfurling as I changed my mind for heaven, nearer than a breath away. Thank you again to the Brooklyn Rail for hosting us Filipino-American poets. I hope the audience also learned something about Philam history and its literature in English. Maraming salamat. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Eileen. That was fantastic. And thank you again for bringing us all together. Thank you, Jose, JoAnn, and Michael for your terrific readings. And thanks everybody for being here. Now we'll do what we do at the end of every reading and unmute everybody's mics to say hello and goodbye as we go off into the rest of the day.
Into the sunset.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Amazing reading.
Oh,
Beautiful.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Michael.
Jose.
Thank
Thank you,
Michael.
Jose.
Thanks, Eileen.
Thank you,
Jose.
JoAnn. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Tom.
Thank you, Eileen.
Beautiful. Thank you,
Amazing.
Thank you, Anselm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eileen.
Beautiful,
you.
beautiful. Thank you.
Michael.
Thank you, Brooklyn
Thank
Rail.
you, Jose. Thank you.